You're listening to Atlanta Baseball Talk, your weekly podcast for all things Atlanta Braves.
Welcome to show number 308. Today is Sunday, July 26th, 2015, and my name is Steve. I am joined by both Hamilton and Curtis. And guys, in tonight's show, we'll talk about who should be off limits during the Braves fire sale, Chris Johnson's comments, Markakis' first home run, and John Smoltz's Hall of Fame induction. But first, guys, with the trade deadline approaching, the Braves made a move this Friday, sending Juan Uribe and Kelly Johnson to the Mets.
Boo. Sorry.
For right-handers John Gant and Rob Whalen. Gant has a .352 ERA and 17 starts between single and double A this season. Whalen has an ERA of .336 in 15 single A appearances this year. They are both projected as back-end starters, maybe relief pitchers. So, Ham, what are your thoughts on the trade?
So I'm glad that we're doing it, that we're officially, or whatever, by our actions, getting into being a selling team. But I don't love this trade. I love, and it's not that I mind giving up Uribe or Johnson. It's just that Gant and Whalen, I bet we don't ever see them. Just seeing it, some of the way that they're progressing, that they're both losing velocity as they sort of move up through the ranks. Gant doesn't really have anything other than one pitch, and it's in the 90s. It's his fastball. It looks like Whalen's got 4 pitches, but it just doesn't look like these guys are much. And after the Fulte and Whistler and Tukey deals, this one is like, whatever. And I'm also, I wish we'd gone for some bats. You know, I mean, maybe the Mets didn't have it, but why didn't we hold out for a catcher or a third base prospect or something like that? So I think we've got a lot of pitching. I know you say you can't have too much pitching, but we certainly have a lot of it. And I would like to see us start building up the bat pipeline with talent. So I'm down on this trade a little bit, but I'm happy we're selling.
Yeah, I mean, Ham, there's a couple of things I think about this trade, and one of them you really hit on. Like, it's maybe the least sexy move the Braves have made all year. There was all the offseason stuff, like it or not. There was big sort of ceiling and exciting prospects and all that stuff behind the offseason trades. And then even the past few moves, like, fleecing Arizona for Touki Toussaint, moving the Cody Martins of the world to get those international bonus cash, to sign really high ceiling guys. Like, this one is different. You had, these are these trades are total shots in the dark, right? You hope maybe one of them hits and they become another trade chip. I don't think you really expect they're going to make it to the majors, but maybe lightning, strikes. But Ham, what I would say is that, like, Uribe and Kelly were huge pieces of the offense this year, which really just speaks to how bad the offense is this year.
Mm-hmm.
But they're rentals. You're not going to get much for rentals. I think we got exactly what you get for guys like Uribe and Kelly Johnson. It's just not that exciting.
That's fair.
Yeah. The front office has been playing this split personality thing for most of the season of, we're rebuilding, but we made moves, so we're competitive. And this one...
retooling.
Right. But this one really felt like we're not playing for anything in 2015. We're really just rebuilding. This is what the rest of the season looks like. This one smacked of that, also in a way that none of them have maybe since, like, the Kimbrel trade.
And it feels like maybe they were just like the first offer that came, and I don't know any of the stuff obviously that happened behind the scenes, but it's like the first offer that came the way, like, okay, that sounds good, we'll take it, right? But I feel like maybe we could have gotten a little bit more for Uribe or Johnson, maybe just a little bit more.
Yeah, I don't know that I agree, but I hear what you're saying. It doesn't seem fair in the immediate, in the now. The hit that it does to the 2015 Braves is in no way offset by
what we got
by fringy prospects. Okay. I mean, they're now. I saw them slotted in one place as like 25th and 26th on the prospect list. It's not too exciting. So, Kurt, a bunch was made about the Clubhouse guys that were brought in this year to bring leadership. You know, the clubhouse was kind of listless last year. Does this trade fly in the face of that in your mind?
Well, I think that just due to the lack of the return that you guys discussed, that it sort of does. Uribe is we saw the outpouring of love from the Dodgers when he was traded. He's clearly a really great presence in the clubhouse. Kelly Johnson is a guy that's kind of been around, so he can teach young players about how to kind of hang in there and do these things. And who else are we going to trade? We don't really know at this point. But if you start dumping Przinsky, you start dumping some of these other guys, Gomes. These are the guys that they really brought in to be not only part of the team and produce in whatever regard, which obviously they got more than they ever could have expected out of Kelly Johnson. And I think even when Uribe came over, his offense was not great, and they saw a great uptick in that coming over. And if you're just going to get marginal fringy talent back for them, I'm not sure that it's almost not worth the trade, because the team is not going to be in the playoff hunt, and some of these young players are going to need to learn how to kind of fight through the doldrums of being in a second half where the games don't really mean much, and being spoilers against teams that are playing for positioning, and also how to fight through a Tuesday night game against the Marlins that has zero impact on anything. So I think that even guys like Kelly Johnson and Uribe can contribute to that teaching process for these young players, and to start dumping these guys, and it's not really like it's a massive salary dump. I don't think that they
saved like $2.5 million or something like that.
Yeah, so it's not like they were going to save a lot of money. I just think that these guys are important to have around, and to get virtually nothing back in return for them, I think their leadership and the roles they play in that, there is value internally with stuff like that you can't replace with fringy single A relief pitchers.
Yeah, I just get back to the season is lost. The front office has thrown the towel in. So you take a flyer on a couple of guys because these are rental players that you're never going to see again. Like, Kurt, the reason I disagree with you is they brought in 4 guys to fill that leadership role this year, in Gomes, AJ, Grilly, and Johnson. Grilly's obviously gone, although he says he's going to hang out in the clubhouse. I don't think anyone wants Gomes. I don't think Gomes goes anywhere by the end of the week. I don't think they're going to move AJ because he is much more integral to this team, not just going into a death spiral the rest of the season than Kelly and Uribe are. And I think Jim Johnson will be moved as well. So you end up keeping Gomes and AJ and, half a Grilly around. And I just don't think there's a big leadership void with those guys still in place.
And this year, this is the one chance I think we have to cash in on what we have. And who cares? Bring the leadership back next year. I would sacrifice prospects for leadership at this point. Maybe if Gomes wasn't here.
Yes, right.
Yes, exactly. Sorry. But I think if Gomes wasn't here, maybe you think about it differently. But at this point, sell, and I know we'll talk about this later, get what you can.
Yeah,
get what you can.
But do you get my point in some regard?
Yeah, no, I do.
I get your point, but I just don't think there's a big void.
Yeah, and I think if Przinsky and Gomes aren't here, it's a different conversation. I feel like with these two guys, I don't think you lose much.
And I think they do move Przinsky. There's already talk that they'll move him and then re-sign him next year.
Yeah, well, and maybe, but
But you're right. The importance of him as a presence, but also as a catcher for these young pitchers, is pretty irreplaceable.
Yeah, and his offense. My God, he's like the third best offensive player on the team.
Hey, we've got LaVarn Way.
Yeah, we do. Yes, we do. All right, so Ham, John Smoltz, a guy who I think I can say is a favorite of all of ours, was inducted into the Hall of Fame today. Everyone knows that. So let's celebrate that by sharing some of our favorite Smoltz memories or just why we loved John Smoltz. So, Ham, you're up.
For me, it was Smoltz in the postseason. We had so many great pitchers, and I wonder if you were to name, rank Maddox, Smoltz, and Glavine in order, I think a lot of people would put Maddox and Glavine before Smoltz for whatever reason. I don't think, and I think you're splitting hairs here, but for some reason, but I think what's lost in that is that Smoltz was our best postseason pitcher, right? I would say Maddox was middling in the postseason, and Glavine certainly had his moments. I mean, he was MVP of the 95, but Smoltz was the man, right? He was 15-4. If you look at a lot of the top 10 career postseason pitching leaders, he's in there. 15-4 record, 2.67 ERA. He pitched 209 innings pitched. I mean, that's a whole season for a good pitcher. In 25 series, he's second in career postseason wins with 15. Andy Pettitte only had more. And a stat that jumps out at me when I think about it is he had a 789 winning percentage in the postseason, but he's the only pitcher in the top 10 of all the leaders in postseason winning percentage. He's the only one with over 200 innings in the postseason. The second closest is Rivera with 141. So he was a unique postseason pitcher who had a lot of success. And I think obviously the Braves underperformed in the 90s when they had what they had, but he was one of the shining stars consistently. So he had a lot of great stuff, but I think that the thing that sticks out for me is just how dependable he was in the postseason.
Kurt, how about you?
Yeah, you target the postseason so much with John Smoltz that because at times maybe his regular season stats weren't all that great. I mean, he obviously won a Cy Young and had some great seasons, but there was up and down in the regular season, but it was the postseason. And even the 4 losses, I mean, you look at the ERA that he had other than the 97 against the Marlins. I mean, he lost to the Yankees in 96. He had a .64 ERA. That was the game 5 that he pitched against Pettitte. And they gave up the unearned run when Jermaine Dye ran. God, and you know what? Kind of looking at these postseason games, just reliving 96.
Don't do it.
And 91. I mean, you think about Game 7 against Jack Morris and that brilliance of that game. Yeah, really. And Lonnie Smith. I mean, there's so many things, so many opportunities the Braves that they were given the chance and just couldn't. And so many times it was given to them at the hands of John Smoltz's postseason brilliance. And he had a comment one time when they talked to him, and it was after that game against the Astros, whatever, 18 innings, I forget what the length of it was. And of course they lost that game. And they were talking about, playing in these historic games, and John Smoltz was like, "Yeah, I'd like to win one of these games at some point." And it's true, I mean, he was amazing, and I say it almost every single year. The Braves, I feel like, would have won more World Series if he had been healthy his entire career. I mean, he missed 94, he missed a couple other, and then he had to close, obviously, and that's one of the reasons he forced himself to come back to the starting rotation is because they were losing those series, and it didn't feel like he could contribute. And he comes back in 2005 after all that and goes 1-0 against the Astros in the NLDS with a 1.29 ERA.
Yeah.
So, it's amazing.
That game against the Astros is one of my favorite memories of him because he's right. It's 2005. He's returned to the starting rotation after being the best closer in the game. And he's crazy injured. I mean, you remember how messed up his shoulder was. He goes 7 innings, 1 earned. And then all the reports afterward was that, had they moved on in the playoffs, there was no way he was going to be able to pitch again because his whole right side and shoulder were completely black and blue. Like he was messed up, but he went out there and gutted out 7 innings for 1 earned to get the only victory in that series. That was the only game the Braves won in 2005 against Houston.
Yeah.
And I think that's where I think that's where the picture comes from. There's an awesome picture that pops up online from time to time, and it's him standing on the side of the mound, crouched down with both of his fists and, pumping out and screaming. You never would have seen, and nothing against Maddox and Glavine because I love them too, but you never would see Tom Glavine, Greg Maddux do that. That only Smoltz would make a pose like that in a game.
Yeah. Well, and I can't believe who was our catcher in the early 90s.
Greg Olson?
Yeah. And there's a picture when we clinched in '92, I think, of the classic picture of the pitcher jumping in the catcher's arms and stuff like that. And it's Smoltz, and it's exactly to your point. He's so exuberant that he really personified, I think, a lot of the excitement that we all felt as fans back then. And the other thing that's just amazing, and we'll never see again, and maybe it's because the opportunity won't present itself, is that when he did go to the bullpen, he set the record for saves his first season as a closer. It's insane. It's storybook. You write stories about this pitcher he was such a great pitcher that maybe he's the greatest pitcher the Braves have ever had. If you think about that feat in itself and what he was able to do as a starter and then that as a closer, it's pretty remarkable.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, you look to Glavine obviously winning, starting that game, the 95 clincher, but I think it's hard to argue that Smoltz overall was not the best pitcher in the during that run
of those big three.
Yeah,
and I think through, if you asked whoever was around, Chipper Jones, Greg Maddux, Tom Glavine, I bet if you asked them to a man, maybe they wouldn't say it on record, but if you ask any of those guys, if it's Game 7. And you have to have one guy pitch that game, I guarantee you they will all say John Smoltz.
I bet they'd say it on record, honestly.
Yeah, and they talk about, the guy wouldn't want to, if you're playing jacks, he wouldn't, if he lost, he would go home and spend 12 hours working on his jacks game so
right.
he could come back and beat you.
Exactly. All right, guys, time for fair or foul, where we throw something out there and you agree with it fair or disagree with it foul. So, Curtis, now that we have moved into selling mode, fair or foul, there are players on your do not sell no matter what list.
Yeah, I'm assuming that there's obviously guys that need not be said, but I would go, some of these young starters, Whistler, Banuelos, Shelby Miller. I would even go the way he's pitched since he's come back from his suspension, Vizcaíno, who more and more looks like our closer of the future.
Agreed.
There are definitely guys that are on that list that you would have to give me Mike Trout to put together in a package.
All right, Hammy, how about you?
I'm with Curtis. I think we're all going to say Freeman and Simmons. I think Whistler, Banuelos are right up there at the top. I'd say Toussaint for now, just with the ceiling that he has and what we could expect from him. But other than that, those are my 5. I think not that I trust the Braves to translate the potential that we have now into the talent that we need back from a trade. But other than that, I'm in a point where no one is untouchable. Right, I think that to make this roster up, I don't think we have max players or all-stars or potential superstars at any position other than those 5. And even those 5 are maybe not super-duper stars. But other than that, I'd say trade them and let's really build for the long run here.
Isn't it crazy that none of us have Tehran on our list?
Or Peraza.
Well, yeah. But Peraza's moved up to AAA, right? Isn't Peraza in AAA now? And he's not really tearing it up there. Yeah, so I would throw Wood on there. I've got Freddie, Simmons, Shelby, Wood, Whistler, and I include AJ in there. I'm telling you, I just think the Braves.
Well, who would catch? LeVar. It would be such a train wreck without.
Right,
LeVar.
right. LeVarnway becomes your starting catcher, and Bethancourt comes up and is the backup. That doesn't do Bethancourt any good. I think that the starting pitchers need a guy like AJ. The offense needs a guy like AJ. I don't want the Braves to lose 80% of the rest of their games.
Yeah.
That would be kind of depressing. So I throw AJ in there as well, but
I think we'd be selling high on Wood. I would trade Wood. I think he's not consistent. We've seen a lot of him. I know he's young and he has great upside, and some of his starts are amazing. That's the one I disagree with you guys. I think Wood is. If somebody came with a great offer for him, I would consider it.
Would you consider Shelby?
Yeah, because you didn't mention Shelby, did you?
I didn't. I would.
Yeah, to me, he's the future of the rotation. I don't know how you move Shelby.
Yeah, some are easier than others, but for me, I guess it just speaks to how much I'm in fire sale mode here.
Yeah, but I mean, some of the guys like that, I'm with Steve. I mean, you can't replace top of the rotation guys. You're not getting that stuff back. And we have no idea what guys like Max Fried and people, I mean, Fulte, do you have any belief that Fulte is going to come back and be that guy?
No.
And
I mean, Shelby he's been just as bad as he's been good over his career.
Yeah, but
right. But
I know he's been injured.
But this year has been a dramatic improvement for Shelby.
Until recently. I mean, the last month and a half.
Yeah, he's had a couple of bad starts, but bad compared to himself, right? I mean, he had like 2 5-run starts, but other than that.
Yeah, I mean, that start he just had in St. Louis was amazing.
No. He's great. It was amazing. It was. I will speak about him later. So anyway, I think I would hate to see him go. He certainly would be the first player I move, but I don't know if I would consider him completely off limits.
Okay.
What about Malik Smith? Any thoughts on him?
I would move him just because who knows yet. Him, Rio Ruiz, Peraza, even Tuki Toussaint. I mean, if you get something really great, I would move those guys that really haven't proven anything. If we're getting something proven for them, I would consider that.
Yeah, and is it a sign that we've accumulated all this talent, and the farm system ranking just came out and the Braves got second, and one of the guys that they consider with the highest upside is our first round draft pick that we just barely signed?
Well, sure, but come on. Don't underscore how amazing it is that all of a sudden we're the number 2 farm
Sure,
system.
no doubt. But
insane.
I mean, it almost speaks that we have lots of really good talent, but not a lot of standalone talent.
Well, I think you have to have more than the standalone talent you're giving credit for to be number 2.
Maybe so, but that's not what was written in that, at least the stuff I saw.
Well. All right, so Ham.
Yes.
Chris Johnson opened up to the media this week. He said a lot. Here's one of the quotes. Quote, "It's been a frustrating year. From the beginning of the offseason, it's been really pretty clear that the team has no interest in getting me back to form or to give me regular playing time." So fair or foul, Ham, Chris Johnson has a point with these comments.
Well, it's interesting. Lately, true, the Braves have not given Johnson carte blanche to play his way back into form, but I don't think it's because they're not interested. I say it's because they can't afford it, or they just don't think it's worth it. It's not worth the investment to put into him. So, because he won't get back to form, or the form he gets back into is just bad. So I think that they're not giving him playing time, but I think it's because he doesn't deserve it. So I'm going to say foul. I don't think he really has a point with his comments.
Curtis?
Yeah, totally. I mean, his demands that he be traded and all this kind of stuff, like they haven't been trying to get rid of you, dude. You're terrible, and you're getting paid way too much money to be terrible. So I'm not sure what he's talking about getting the opportunity to go back to what, I mean, he's just kind of an average player. So I don't know that more playing time, if it doesn't expose him more than it does allow him the opportunity to get back to 250 hitter. So.
I mean, to say that the team has no interest in getting him back to form is ridiculous. There's nothing the Braves would want more than for him to look good so that they could trade him or that they could use him on the field. I mean, it's kind of ridiculous.
Right.
When I was thinking about this question, the first thing I wanted to do was fair or foul. Chris Johnson is a gigantic jackleg. That was really the first thing I wanted to ask, but I felt it would be too easy.
Fair.
Fair. Exactly. I mean, it's just silly. And, the first month in April, they started him in 11 of 22 games, and he appeared in 5 others. So he appeared in 16 of the 22 games in April. So it's kind of disingenuous to be like, they're not playing me and they're not interested in me. I mean, he started in 50% of the games and appeared in 5 additional ones. We know that he's a hothead and all that stuff, and I think this was just another example of his immaturity. And my God, it couldn't have been more off-putting to me.
Yeah. Or the only angle you could see if you're him is that I'm playing horribly right now. If I'm going to drum up any interest in any other teams, I'm going to make it the Braves' fault and not my fault. Right, if in case, but not that that would work. But he doesn't have much recourse. He's horrible. He wants out. Nobody wants him. He may just be grasping at straws.
Yeah, I don't give him credit for thinking 3 steps ahead like that, Hammy. I really don't.
Well, and he might get his opportunity when they release him at the end of the season.
Yeah, and exactly that's what will happen. All right, so Kurt, Markakis hit his first homer of the year in game 1 against the Dodgers this past week. So fair or foul, Markakis has at least 4 home runs by the end of the season.
Well, I'm picked 5, so I will stick with that and go fair.
All right, Hammy?
Well, if you look at his splits over his career, Markakis is sort of the anti-Adam LaRoche, in that he's pretty consistent between first half and second half. He's hit 69 homers in the first half of his career, in the first half of a season in his career, and then 73 in the second half. So if you think that way, he's had 1, so maybe he's not going to go up. But August is actually his career best month for homers, where he's hit 35 homers. So I think he's going to get a little bit of a push here in the second half of the season and put him over 4. I think he's going to get 7. So I say fair.
Ham, this is clearly a left-handed compliment, but that was some good analysis and stats there. That was good, Hammy.
My mouth was agape.
Why, thank you.
You're welcome. I'm going he hits 3 homers this year. That is it. I go foul on this one.
You hate Nick Markakis.
I do.
You do.
I really do. And his beard is just horrible.
His beard. I hate all the beards, to be honest with you.
Yeah, that making him really not the anti-Adam LaRoche, who now looks like he's part of the Duck Dynasty.
He really does. All right, guys, let's move on to Silver Lining, where we talk about the thing we can hang our hats on from this past week. So, who do we got? Hammy?
Yeah. So as I mentioned, Shelby Miller. Back to his old self and a really unfortunate loss. 7 1/3, 2 hits, 2 walks, 4 Ks. That maddening streak where the Braves refuse to score while he's pitching.
His last 7 games, it's something, I heard it today on the radio, the number of innings is in the 40s that they have not scored a run
while he's pitching. It's really remarkable. But it's nice to see him not go 6 or less and give up 3 or 4 runs, right? It felt like, and maybe you guys... Maybe I'm on the downside of him, but after such a hot start, it felt like he was really struggling for those past 7 games, right? And to see him have a great start like that, unfortunately, didn't get the win, but that was reassuring.
All right, Curtis, what do you got?
Yeah, and I asked the question a couple of weeks ago if we were starting to worry about him, so it's good. And I mean, certainly there was added motivation against St. Louis in that game.
Sure.
I went with a guy who has struggled recently, and we've discussed his struggles as of late, and he bounced back this week. It was Andrelton Simmons, who went 8 of 19 for a .421 batting average, .476 OBP. So hopefully he's back in the right direction. Jace Peterson's still contributing very, very little. So hopefully next week he will be the silver lining that I will pick. But for this week, it's Andrelton Simmons.
Yeah, Simmons, I mean, the 15 games in July leading up to the start of this week, the Dodgers series, his slash line was 149, 245, 170. He had really fallen off a cliff. So absolutely good to see. I'm going to go with Vizcaíno. Another clean week, 3 innings, 3 appearances, 3 innings, 1 hit. Our closer of the future for the rest of the year.
He throws it hard.
Yep, he looks good. All right, guys, next up is Shot in the Dark, our prediction for the coming week. But let's look back at last week and see how we did. So we'll start with our listener pick for Shot in the Dark. And it was from Twitter follower Taylor Enickson. And it was that Jason Hayward would rob Nick Markakis of his first homer of the season. This weekend in St. Louis. Luckily, Markakis took care of that in Game 1 of the Dodgers series. And God, that would have been awful. All right, guys, before we get to our predictions for this week, let's check in on how we did last week. Kurt, you predicted that Brandon Beachy in the Dodgers series would pitch 6 innings, give up 2 earned, strike out 7. He went 4 and gave up 4. And was beaten so soundly by the Braves that he was sent to AAA after the game.
That's bittersweet.
Yeah. No, I agree. It was better knocking out the Marlins coach earlier in the year than sending Brandon Beachy to AAA. Ham, you predicted that Hayward would bat over 400 with a homer. In the series against the Cards this weekend, he batted 181, 2 for 11 with no homers. So excellent reverse jinx there.
You're welcome, everyone.
Yes. And I predicted that the Braves would knock Beachy out of the game before the end of the third, and they knocked him out after 4. I declare myself the winner.
I do. I second that. And Kurt, it pains me.
Thank you, Hammy.
So we should say
after he stole the Tehran one from me 2 weeks ago.
And nice job taking 2 of 3 from the Dodgers.
No kidding.
What a week.
Absolutely.
And really put up a fight against the Cardinals.
Yeah. I mean, we could have easily won 2 or 3. I mean, we could have easily won that Shelby game.
Or gotten swept. But yes.
Well, yes, that too. And Whistler, we haven't talked about Whistler. Whistler had 2 great starts this week. And looked amazed. But look, he fought through in the Dodgers series and looked incredible today. He looked
great today. Yeah,
he looked great today. And look, he had that rough inning, but then came back in the 6th and shut them down. Like, there was good maturity there from Whistler in that first start. And then just looked great today. All right, so where am I? Right, so for July, I'm at 2 wins, Ham's at 1, Kurt is at 0. So next week.
Yikes.
It's a big week. Ham, you got to catch me.
I will. Don't you worry.
All right, so this week, Kurt, what do you got? What's your shot in the dark?
Heaping more love on Chris Johnson, our favorite player. I predict that he hits 185 this week with 7 Ks.
Okay. I think it could happen. Ham, how about you?
I'm going to drop your jaws with some more stats. So Markakis at home, when he was with the Orioles, hit 83 homers. And so that was almost 30 homers, 25 homers more than he hit on the road. So I'm going to say he hits 2 homers in the series against the Orioles this week.
That would be very exciting. I mean, it really would on a number of levels. All right, I'm sticking with home runs as well. I go that Freddie comes back strong this week. He hits 3 homers over the course of the week.
That would be fantastic as well.
Yeah, indeed. All right, guys, let's take a look at our win-loss predictions that we made last week and look ahead to this week's games. So for this 3-3 week, no one got it right. Ham, you were at 2-4. Kurt, you were at 1-5.
Boo.
And I was at 4-2 because I love the Braves and you guys hate the Braves. Nice. All right, for the week ahead, 6 games on the road, 3 at Baltimore, 3 at Philly. Let's look at the pitching matchup. So game 1 against the Orioles, it's Alex Wood against Kevin Gossman and his 5.18 ERA. He's given up 11 over the last 2 games, but was pretty good before that. Next up is Julio Tehran on the road. Shiver. He has 2 starts this week, by the way, on the road. Oh, boy.
One in Philly, too, and he always gets just destroyed in Philly, too, it feels like.
So Tehran against Ubaldo Jimenez in his 3.81 ERA. He's given up 14 runs over his past 2 games, 7-7. Finishing up in Baltimore, it's Manny Banuelos against Chris Tillman in his 4.71 ERA. The Orioles have had a terrible July. They won 5 of their first 18 games in July before taking 2 of 3 this weekend in Tampa. So, Baltimore was looking pretty good, but they have been on rough times. All right, so on to Philly. It's Shelby Miller versus Cole Hamels, but surely Cole Hamels is not pitching that game. Right, I mean, he's either traded by then or they're holding him out of the game.
He's traded by then. Yeah, we're not seeing Cole Hamels.
We're not seeing Cole Hamels. I saw tonight, what did I see? That the Rangers and the Dodgers were the 2 leading candidates, according to somebody. I bet the Dodgers get him. Do you?
Mm-hmm.
Boy, that'd be something else, man.
Well, I mean, it's probably because you hear Greinke and Kershaw, but after that, as we saw this week, they don't have great starting pitching.
No, it's true.
They need it.
Yep.
Although I don't know what they have to offer to the Phillies because they feel like they may have, sold the farm for the present day.
Yep. All right, next up is Matt Whistler versus Aaron Nola, the rookie that the Phillies just called up. He's making his 3rd major league start. He gave up 1 and 4 earned, respectively, in his first 2 starts. And then the final game of the week is Tehran, 2nd start of the week. He faces Adam Morgan and his 4.28. So, Ham, what's your prediction for this 6-game week? Heading into all the crazy trades, no less.
Yeah, so I think Tehran loses both of his starts, but I think we win all the rest. So I say we go 4-2.
All right, Curtis?
I go 3-3, 1-2, 2-1. And when is Williams Perez due back?
So Perez made his third start in Gwinnett today, I believe. So it's got to be soon. It's got to be soon. And Banuelos, according to the pitch count, he's only got 3 or 4 more starts to go.
So what happens? So what do we do then? So let's say Perez comes back in a week. How do we think that plays out?
Well, then maybe you send Banuelos to the bullpen then and get his pitches in that way. So you have him for longer.
Ugh.
Well, yeah.
Yeah.
All right, I'm going 5-1. I think we sweep the Orioles, and Tehran actually gets through his start, but we lose his one start in Philly.
You love the Braves.
I do love the Braves.
You should do a podcast.
You should do a podcast.
All right, guys, that is the show. Everybody, please make sure you have us in your RSS feeds or subscriptions on iTunes or Stitcher so that you don't miss any of our weekly shows. And as always, check us out at AtlantaBaseballTalk.com for past shows, to check out our blogs, and to post in our comments section. And be sure to follow us on Twitter at ATL Baseball Talk and to like us on Facebook. Thanks again for listening, everyone, and go Braves!
Thanks for listening to Atlanta Baseball Talk, your weekly podcast for all things Atlanta Braves. To find new shows, to post in our forum, or to send a comment, please visit us at AtlantaBaseballTalk.com.
Had to admit the problem.